Hello and welcome to another episode of The Week Gone By, where we give you a brief of all the news that has happened in South Asia in the last week. But first, let's take a quick look at all the news that made the headlines. Yielding to relentless opposition pressure, Telecom Minister A. Raja resigned last week in the wake of the 2G spectrum allocation scam. He has sent a text to the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh saying that after discussion with DMK Chief Karunanidhi and to avoid further embarrassment to the government, he is resigning. He, however, added that his resignation does not mean that he is accepting all the charges made against him. Now the report that pushed A. Raja through the exit door of the Telecom Ministry was tabled in the Lok Sabha. Prepared by the Controller and Auditor General, the document held Raja responsible on many fronts for violating guidelines, indulging in favoritism and costing the government 1.76 lakh crores rupees by mishandling the allocation of 2G spectrum in 2008. Later in the week, the Supreme Court even asked for an affidavit to be filed on behalf of the Prime Minister that would explain as why he took close to a year to respond to a request for the prosecution of former Telecom Minister A. Raja for allegedly orchestrating the massive 2G scam. In reply to this, Solicitor General Gopal Subramaniam said that the Supreme Court's criticism of the Prime Minister in the 2G spectrum scam is not an embarrassment. During the past week, the government also asserted that the Supreme Court has passed no stricture against the Prime Minister or the PMO in connection with the 2G spectrum issue. It also rejected suggestions that the law officers have failed to properly present its side in spectrum case in the Apex Court. Law Minister M. Veerappa Moile added that nothing has gone wrong in the court and even accused the media of creating hype on the issue. The Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI, also said that the 5 new companies who were given 2G licenses by Raja should be forced to surrender 69 licenses for failing to deliver their end of the bargain. TRAI reportedly said that the companies have not even met the most basic requirements and they haven't rolled out their phone services as per to the timeline decided in the contracts. However, the Telecom Ministry, which is currently being headed by Kapil Sibal now, is now obliged to follow the recommendation. Now here's a look at some of the biggest scams that have rocked the nation so far. The Bofors scandal was a major corruption scandal in India in the 80s. After this came the fake stamp paper scam, whose sheer magnitude left everyone in a state of utter shock. The Satyam scandal was also publicly announced, and then here is the 2G scam.
The Bofors scandal was a major corruption scandal in India in the 1980s. The then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi and several others were accused of receiving kickbacks from Bofors AB for winning a bid to supply India's 155mm field howitzer. The scale of the corruption was far worse than any that India had ever seen and directly led to the defeat of Gandhi's ruling Indian National Congress Party in the November 1989 general elections. It has been speculated that the scale of the scandal was to the tune of Rs 400 million. The case came to light during Vishwanath Pratap Singh's tenure as Defence Minister and was revealed through investigative journalism by Chitra Subramaniam and N. Ram of the newspapers The Indian Express and The Hindu. The name of the middleman associated with the scandal was Ottavio Quattrochi, an Italian businessman who represented the petrochemicals firm Snam Progati. Quattrochi was reportedly close to the family of Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi and emerged as a powerful broker in the 1980s between big businesses and the Indian government. And just when one thought that the people at large had become somewhat indifferent to exposés of corruptions and scams, came the mother of all scams, leaving all and sundry in a state of utter shock. The sheer magnitude of the fake stamp paper scam, which reportedly made a staggering Rs 30,000 crore hole in the exchequer, left even the most resigned and shock-proof observers gasping in stunned disbelief. The disclosures of Abdul Karim Telgi, the architect of the fake stamp paper racket, while in captivity have set more than a few heads rolling, including top cops and bureaucrats. He earned money to the tune of several billion US by printing counterfeit stamp paper in India. The scale of his operation and scam can only be matched by the stock market scam of the early 1990s in India done by the late big bull Harshad Mehta and by the money laundering scam of Hassan Ali Khan. With many a political and bureaucratic career now hinging on the confessions of this devious mind, ordinary citizens still eagerly wait and watch how the drama plays itself out. The Satyam scandal was publicly announced on 7th January 2009 when Chairman Ramalinga Raju confessed that Satyam's accounts had been falsified. On 7th January 2009, company chairman Ramalinga Raju resigned after notifying board members and the Securities and Exchange Board of India that Satyam's account had been falsified. Raju confessed that Satyam's balance sheet of 30th September 2008 contained inflated figures for cash and bank balances of 5,040 crore rupees as against 5,361 crore rupees reflected in the books. An accrued interest of 376 crore rupees, which was a non-existent, an understated liability of 1,230 crore rupees on account of funds that was arranged by himself, an overstated debtor's position of 490 crore rupees as against 2,651 crore rupees in the books. Raju claimed in the same letter that neither he nor the managing director had benefited financially from the inflated revenues. He claimed that none of the board members had any knowledge of the situation in which the company was placed. The genesis of the 2G scam dates back to 2008 when 9 telecom companies were issued spectrums and licenses for second generation or 2G mobile phone services at 1,658 crore rupees for pan-India operations. As many as 122 circle-wise licenses were issued. The opposition said that by giving the airwaves cheap, that too in the controversial manner of first-come first-served basis, the exchequer had lost billions of dollars. The cut-off date for applications was also arbitrarily advanced. Later, based on the auction of airwaves for third generation of 3G services, which got nearly $15 billion to the exchequer, and that for broadband access, which fetched over $8.5 billion, the notional loss was estimated at $38 billion to the exchequer. The Comptroller and Auditor General of India said the entire process of spectrum allocation was undertaken in an arbitrary manner and that the advice of the industry watchdog TRAI was ignored and misused.
We will now go across to our senior correspondent, Mr. Pranay Sharma, who will give us an in-depth analysis of the 2G scam that is expected to have cost the nation more than 1.76 lakh crore rupees.
Hi, I'm Pranay Sharma, doing a review of the big stories in India last week. There were two big stories which dominated the news, and the first had to do with the 2G spectrum scam. Now, we know that the minister who was in charge of this ministry, IT ministry, A. Raja of the DMK party, he was forced to resign because there was a lot of uproar in parliament. A lot of people were demanding his resignation, and so the Congress party decided. They had a meeting with the DMK, their alliance partner, and finally Mr. A. Raja was removed. The DMK has not nominated anyone at the moment. The Human Resource Development Minister, Kapil Sibal, has been asked to look after that ministry. But why this is still in the news, and it's still a big story, is because of a recent judgment of the Supreme Court.